Hello! If you're a big Dicey Exploits fan, you would have uncovered my Christmas message from last year. I don't really heavily publicise them, but I do feel like they're important to do because it allows me to drop my rather monotone, well, I'm always monotone, but my rather downtrodden persona just for a few minutes to talk directly to camera about just stuff and things. Also, last year I joked that we didn't have a fireplace and that we were breaking laws in Sussex. It was a superb middle-class joke. We have one now. We're in Scotland, so it doesn't quite carry over, although I could have just withheld that information. So last year I basically said be nice to everyone. If you see a content creator you enjoy, go out and tell them you enjoy them. And just genuinely don't be a douche to people. And 2016 hasn't provided on that front. So this video is kind of split into two halves. The first half is basically describing what's going to be happening in the new year for Dicey Exploits, because there's going to be some rather big additions. And the second half is me thanking people and saying you should actually watch these folk instead of myself. It was going to be the other way around, but I thought I'd actually, get the vast bulk majority of stuff you probably don't want to hear out of the way first, so that you stay on board for the latter half, because I feed off YouTube analytics. So, next year, Dicey Exploits will be changing a tad. It won't be altering the DNA of the entire channel, what little DNA there is, but it will be essentially adding to it. So I don't see it as a majorly horrible thing, but I want to describe it just for transparency's sake, so as to not annoy you when it eventually happens. So whilst I go on and on about ball games a lot of the time, I actually predominantly work in the video game industry, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of awesome people within it. Obviously, Dicey Exploits comes up every discussion I have, and the reaction is usually, oh. There's a slight hint of trepidation in the voice, and it's not because of any negative impact, not at all, because, you practically work in the same field. I've discussed this with other people outside of any games industry, and they smirk with absolute contempt at you working with toys for children, and that is absolutely horrible and demoralizing. And it's quite hard to describe the industry as a whole, I find at least, to them. I usually go for like a gateway game or something like that, but if I go for Ticket to Ride, I'm talking about trains, and if I go for Mysterium, I sound like I'm on LSD. But these are games that they should totally play. So in 2017, I'll be doing a series of video game essays. They might be close readings of one video game, they might just focus on that entirely, but they'll also be bleeding into board game culture and board game design in an attempt to sort of bridge that gap between the two fields, so it's not as daunting for either side to really delve into it. I've already got some ideas, some of them are really cool, some of them desperately need work, but I think this could be a really cool thing. It might crash, in which case, I'll stop doing it if negative feedback floods me, but I think it could be something awesome. To make it clear, I won't be ditching the board game reviews. I love doing them. They're basically the foundation of this channel, and the reason why I wanted to say this is for utmost transparency. I don't want some of the people who have come here expecting review after review after review to then get disappointed and dismayed when stuff like this comes up in your subscriptions. I don't want you to turn away out of a misunderstanding. So it's an absolute guarantee, unless there are technical issues, in which case you can follow me on Twitter to find out about those, that after every video game essay I do, the next day there will be a standard Dicey Exploits tabletop game review. Because, I really don't want to disappoint you guys, and I am kind of worried that there'll be a mob at my door screeching and shouting at the fact that I've sold out based on a higher viewership, but that really isn't the case. So, if you could just give me this chance to kind of explore that area, I guarantee that you'll still get regular content that you came here for originally. And yes, the second half is thank yous and people you should probably be watching instead of me. The channel, hasn't exploded or anything in the past year, but it has seen a lot of people come over to me, and it seems like a lot of people actually value my opinion on things now, which is kind of concerning, but, apparently I can't, turn you away with my criticisms of myself. So first up is Efgar and Elaine over at No Pun Included, because earlier this year I was in something of a shambles thanks to a drama. I kind of had to reach out to them to, essentially for support, and that doesn't sound like a huge thing, but I'm very socially inept. Is inept the word I'm looking for? You're nodding. Yep, it's inept. Coming out of my shell is essentially tough enough, because we're not talking about an egg here. We're talking about a reinforced tank that's somewhere at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It's incredibly tough, and why would I want to come out of that? And they were lovely, supportive, and nice, and of course I, made things worse in my head than they actually are. And of course they make really funny stuff, so you should jump over there and watch their stuff and subscribe. In fact, actually, last year you're all stubborn enough to ignore my message. Don't go over there and subscribe. But do, because I'm worried that joke won't land. Secondly is John over at Actual Lol. I think if you're here, then you likely already know of his work, so I won't go too much into it. But yeah, it's genuinely a quality work that I feel deserves to be probably not on sketch comedy on TV, because that's gone completely downhill. But yeah, in fact, it's actually started branching out into that area, and it works totally well. Don't jump over there, but jump over there. Thirdly, Paul over at Game Rules, who is incredibly supportive and nice as well, and is also, pretty much without him, you wouldn't have got the Crisis review, which I think got a lot of people here anyway, so you wouldn't have heard of me if it weren't for Paul. Yeah, again, much more professionally made stuff over there than over here, so don't go over there, but do go over there. Fourthly, Michael over at Meeple Like Us, who genuinely creates astounding content and is apparently heading the Dicey Exploits fan club that I never knew existed. He has a blog which is tirelessly putting out reviews based on accessibility in board games, and they are genuinely fascinating pieces. And I was about to say it's hit on a niche, but it's not a niche, because it's an area that needs a lot more focus and time dedicated to it. And I'm not just saying that because I work for a charity, Games Aid, that, part of it focuses on that in itself. It's a bunch of reviews that I think a lot of developers and publishers should be reading, because, well, not only does it make gaming more inclusive, but it makes it more profitable for you, so why would you not? Please go over to his blog, I'll include a link. I'm not just saying that because he tirelessly promotes, essentially, for me, because I'm so bad at it. Sorry if I'm speeding through these, I'm genuinely thankful. The fire's dying, though. It's not linked to my life force, but it is keeping me warm. There's also William McKee, who also is a good university friend, and put up my Flick 'em Up video on Reddit because I was too scared to do so. A lot of you came over from that, so you would not have heard of me if it weren't for him. I'll include his Twitter in the description. He's a genuinely nice guy, so don't follow him. Follow him. Joke is. There's also James Wallace, who you likely have heard of. He's made Paranoia recently. I think that's coming out in January. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, which I'm convinced I haven't pronounced correctly, has just come out, and is also a university lecturer of mine and has stayed in contact with me. He started this whole board game addiction. I constantly joke about it, and without him, this wouldn't even have started, and a corner of my entire flat wouldn't have been invaded by board games and kicked out my wife's craft corner, which she's happy about. She's got the entirety of upstairs. It's not as bad as I'm making it out to be. So yes, thanks to James. My wallet doesn't thank you, but I do. That's what matters. And if I do run out of money and can't afford accommodation, the good thing about board games is you can basically make your own. Right, and then there's a couple more which I think you should go over and watch. I haven't had the good fortune to talk to them, mainly because of my social ineptitude again. Firstly, the folk over at Best Play. When I make a Dicey Exploits, I like to think I trim a lot of the fat down, and when I say a lot of the fat, it's just basically explaining this is how you play the game. It's not that I don't think that stuff like that is unimportant or uninteresting. I'm just really not very interesting when describing rules to games, he says, with his voice falling down a hole. So it's something I think I can get a lot better at when streamlining my reviews. And every time I've edited a video, I sit back and go, yeah, I've done all right there. And then a Best Play video comes up, and I watch it and go... They do a series of videos called The Gist, which is basically pretty much describing every game under the sun within a minute, and they're always spectacularly well produced, they're always very, very funny, and they fit in a lot of information in a very short space of time. They are most likely a lot better to introduce people to when it comes to saying you should play this board game, you should play that board game, than I think a lot of reviews attempt to do, so direct them that way. Also, I've been watching a lot of GameWire from Bebo, which makes just a large array of reviews, interviews, really interesting content that you shouldn't jump over and watch. There's just a lot of previews on there, essentially, which aren't just describing the game, but come with a little bit of oomph and personality, which I really enjoy. So, GameWire, go. And finally, I've been listening to the And also, I've been listening to the Our Turn podcast a lot recently, which is genuinely great. I feel like I might just be repeating myself, going, good content, good content, good content. So I'm just going to leave it there and say, download podcast, I'll add a link. So the fire is kind of just trembling into nothingness now, so I think now is a good time just to leave it. I hope you have a good Christmas. I don't know why I said it like that. I hope you have a good Christmas. I hope you bought a board game and brought it with you to your family and that it doesn't cause a huge, horrible argument. If it does, email me and I'll send my condolences, I guess. I can't do any more than that. It's your family. And I genuinely hope that we all survive to see next year's Christmas message. I think it's a bit ominous that at that moment the fire picks up.